welcome to American Baker in Germany. I'm Michelle, and today we are continuing our Baking Basics series, and this time we are talking about the difference between fondant and marzipan. This is something that a lot of people don't actually know, so let's get started.
First of all, what is fondant and what is marzipan? Fondant is a sugar paste that is often used to cover cakes and create edible decorations for cakes. Fondant is called sugar paste because it is made of almost nothing else other than sugar. It has a fairly neutral yet very sweet flavor, so many people don't care for it. Marzipan is also a sweet paste that can be used for the same things that fondant can. However, marzipan is made of finely ground almonds as well as a good amount of sugar. Because marzipan also has the almonds with it, it has a stronger flavor than fondant does, which most people find more pleasant to eat. First of all, I will show you what it's like working with fondant. Fondant must be kneaded before rolling out because it is often quite hard and can be even crumbly right out of the package. These can be completely overcome by simply kneading the fondant a bit. Almost any problem with fondant can be eradicated by kneading. Then, if you have folds in the fondant, make sure they're at the bottom before you roll it out. I roll up my fondant on a non-stick mat and very rarely have problems with sticking, but if you do, you can use powdered sugar or cornstarch on your surface to keep it from sticking. As you can see, fondant is made to be cut out using small cutters, so these work very well with the fondant. The negative with fondant is that it's very soft, so it's easy to get out of shape when lifting up, and you often have to reshape it a bit. You can see this very well with the letters. Now I'm going to make a fondant rose. I have a tutorial up on how to make a fondant rose if you're interested in that, but one essential step to making a realistic looking rose is to thin the edges of the petals to very fine. Now fondant doesn't particularly like sticking to itself. You can either use edible glue to get it to stick or just a bit of water on a paintbrush. But suffice it to say, the roses made of fondant turn out gorgeous. Finally, I'm going to model something fairly simple without tons of detail, so I'm going to make a simple bird shape. This works fairly well with fondant, although the head tends to droop a bit and over time the tail also isn't quite as perky as when I first shaped it. Otherwise, it holds its shape quite well. Now let's look at marzipan. I'm kneading it more out of habit than anything else because the creases don't come out of marzipan as you knead it like they do with fondant. You just have to roll it out. The act of rolling it out will cause any irregularities with the marzipan to stick back together and will actually smooth out the creases. The edges, however, will remain a bit ragged. As you can see, the cutters work just as well with the marzipan. The consistency is quite similar. The biggest difference in the consistency is that marzipan is actually stickier than fondant, so never roll it out on a glass or a wooden surface without anything underneath it. Powdered sugar helps, but isn't that helpful? The easiest way to roll out marzipan is on a non-stick mat or parchment paper. You may notice that I'm struggling a bit with the letters. The reason is that with the extra stickiness of the marzipan causes tiny pieces of marzipan to stick in the smallest gaps of the letters. But they are much more difficult to remove than with fondant. Now let's make a marzipan rose. There is a small problem with something this detailed. Marzipan, being made of almonds, contains tiny grains of almonds that does not allow it to get as thin at the edges as fondant can. The very edges of the petals end up kind of ragged. The advantage of marzipan in something like this is that nothing is needed as glue. Marzipan sticks to itself quite well. Now I'll model the simple bird. The marzipan holds its shape a bit better, but also has a slight texture on the outside that makes it not quite as smooth as fondant. In summary, words and letters are about as equally as effective in fondant and marzipan, with marzipan having the slight disadvantage of having some strayed bits in the details. The roses, or anything modeled with tiny details, fondant has the clear advantage here. The thinnest edges just aren't possible with marzipan. Simple, less detailed models are about equal between the two. Another small difference is the color of the materials. Fondant is naturally very white, and marzipan is slightly off-white. One option for those who prefer the taste of marzipan to fondant is to cover the cake with marzipan and make the fine decorations out of fondant, like I did with the red roses and green geometric wedding cake I made a while back. I hope you found this information helpful today. For more cakes and tutorials, visit our website at AmericanBakerInGermany.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe for a new cake video every week.